Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Sam Silverstein, who you may have heard his battle cry of no more excuses because he tells people the importance of simply not giving excuses. Best-selling author, written a number of books, and he's got a great new publication called Accountability Magazine. Sam, real great to have you on the show.
Doug, it's an honor to be here.
So a lot of people, they have their keywords and their key phrases like goal setting and become a superstar, but you seem to have really stuck to something that's, well, frankly, it sounds a little bit more ordinary. You said you have to be accountable. What do you mean by that?
Well, I've been working with people and organizations for over 21 years, and what we discovered about a dozen years ago was that it really boils down to accountability. That's the foundation. And we define accountability as keeping your commitments to people. And we go further, we say you're responsible for things, but you're accountable to people. That report's not going to hold you accountable. The project is not going to hold you accountable. But Doug, you'll hold me accountable and I'll hold you accountable. And maybe even more importantly, if we're getting it right, you're going to help me be accountable and I'll help you be accountable.
Is that the same thing as, what my mother did, which was basically called a Jewish mother's guilt?
No, accountability is not punitive. Accountability is not standing up and saying, hey, it's my fault. It won't happen again. That's just being honest. That's just telling the truth. If you messed up, you messed up. Accountability, when understood properly, positions you to get it right in the first place. And that's the goal, is not to have to be correcting mistakes that you've made, but to get it right from the beginning. And so when we focus on keeping your commitments to people, we like to talk about both the commitments that you actually make to them, the spoken commitments, but then there's also unspoken commitments, things that you're going to do in someone's best interest. And that's equally important.
Is this a question of character, meaning you are a man true to your word, you might say? Or is it a question of practicality, meaning someone can simply count on you because if you say it'll be done, then it'll be done?
It's all about character. It's all about character. Because remember, I said it's both the spoken commitments and the unspoken commitment. And there's an unspoken commitment to take care of people, to look out for individuals, when you have children, you want the best for them and you want to put them in a position where they can excel and where they can grow. And you may never have told them that you're going to do this, but you do it. And when you work with individuals, it's looking out for their best interests. The accountable leaders always looking for the potential in the people that they lead and helping them get to that potential. And again, it may not be something that you've articulated, but it is something that because of your character, you know that you must do.
Well, why do you suppose a lot of organizations have trouble with accountability?
They don't know what they believe. They really have no idea what it is that they believe. They may say what they believe, but they don't really believe it, meaning that their actions are not aligning with what they're telling you is important and that they value.
All right. So let's drive this closer to home. A guy goes to work or a woman goes to work and is given a job and a series of tasks and tries to get through it throughout the day. And, sometimes achieves it and sometimes doesn't get to whatever it was he was supposed to do. And he says to his boss, listen, it didn't happen, or he just doesn't even bother handing it in. Is that the type of person who you can actually train to get the sense of accountability?
Accountability doesn't come from walking into someone's office or place of business and saying, okay, guys, you have to be accountable. We need more accountability around here, because that goes to the punitive. And accountability doesn't fall into that category. What happens within organizations, when we work with organizations long term, what we help them do is create a culture where accountability is prioritized and inspired. And that's what happens. You create a place where someone actually wants to be accountable. When someone wants to be accountable, then they will be accountable. And then over time, if you really know what it is that you believe as an organization, then you don't tolerate anything that goes against that. And then you're weeding out the individuals that aren't doing what it is they say they're going to do.
We're talking with Sam Silverstein, who's an entrepreneur, a business expert, an international author, and he's spoken around the world about the importance of accountability in businesses. Sam, I'd like to drive that home to sort of a smaller entity, which is the family itself. And quite frankly, a lot of times parents might have trouble teaching accountability to their children, and they may not even feel accountable to one another, which, as a financial advisor, my day job is I'm a financial advisor, and I spend most of my time talking to couples about how to develop long term financial plans. But a lot of times I find that the husbands or the wives are kind of shirking their responsibility and they don't want to be held accountable. Are your principles something that could be applied at home as well?
Absolutely. And it's really whether it's a family unit, a business unit, an organization, it's still there's a group of people there. And so it starts off with understanding what it is that you believe. And also one of the other key components is valuing people. So if you value your spouse and you said that you're going to do something, why wouldn't you do it? Because if you're not showing up and you're not doing what it is that you say you're going to do, then you're not creating a situation that's inspiring them to want to do what it is that they say they're going to do.
Well, it's
And it
hard,
goes,
right? Isn't that the answer? Well, it's difficult. Honey, I couldn't. I went shopping and I just felt I had to buy all this extra stuff. And
well,
it's just
but
difficult.
then, well, yeah, but then that's just making an excuse. So then that brings up the element, what can you control and what can you not control? So when you're creating a culture that fosters accountability, you're focused on what you can control, not what you can't control. You can control whether you spend money. You can control whether you buy something that you said you weren't going to buy. That's totally in your control. You can't control the economy. That's beyond your control. And so when someone makes excuses, when they focus on what they can't control, then what ends up happening is they get excuses. But when you focus on what you can't control, then you don't get excuses. And it leads to the individual being accountable.
Let me go back to a phrase you said a minute ago. You said that people sometimes even don't understand what they believe. In other words, I gave the example of a husband and wife not communicating properly, and you said, well, maybe they don't even know what they believe. What do you mean by that?
Well, what do you believe about how you manage your money as a family unit? What do you believe about each other? What do you believe about anything? I mean, you can either look at it spiritually or not. It doesn't really matter. But we have things that we believe. I know what you look, Doug. If I followed you around for a day or two, I could tell you what you believe just by watching your actions. Mm-hmm. So when you met someone on the street, how did you treat them? Did you engage them? Were you gracious? Well, that would tell me what it is that you believed about how you treat people. And so it's the same thing between two spouses. So what is it you believe about money management in the family? Because if you tell me, well, I believe that we put together a budget and we're going to stick to the budget, but then you're off buying some stuff, then you don't believe that you stick to the budget. You can't tell me that you believe you stick to the budget because your actions are telling me otherwise.
And now let's say you want to bring that down to the next generation and teach your kids about the importance of being accountable. How would you impart that lesson to them?
Have some great conversations with the kids and talk about the things that are important in your life, how you treat people, how you look at money, what is a commitment. When you say you're going to do something, do you do it? Can people count on you? And have those types of conversations with your children. But be sure that that's what you're modeling to them, because you can't get trapped into the do as I say, not as I do mode, because that's not going to fly, especially when it comes to accountability.
And how about in families where the parents are very well off? They're successful for whatever reason, and they are big spenders, but it's because they're big earners, and it's okay. It's not threatening their long-term financial security. And yet they want to tell their children to be more careful. What would you do in that case?
More careful about the way they spend their money?
Right. You don't want them to be, in other words, the parents are saying, we're not going to support a rich lifestyle for you, but we have one because we're rich.
Well, this comes back to communication. I have 4 children, and something that we've always felt was important was being transparent, open, and honest with them, just like you would be in a business with the people that you work with. And so we explained to them that when we earn money, we have the opportunity to put ourselves in a position to travel or to afford a certain lifestyle. But if we spend it all, then what happens is we jeopardize that in the future. And so we try to model and we try to show them that it's important to save. And when our children were young and they're all adults now, we wanted them to save and we encouraged them to save. And if you if you set an example where you go out and you buy just anything that you want, even if you are an adult and even if you're making the money, then you're teaching your children that they can go out and buy anything they want. And so sometimes just because you can afford to buy something doesn't mean that you should. Maybe you need to send the message that, you know what, we've spent a lot of money this quarter or this month because we took a family vacation, and so we're going to be conservative. And even though maybe you don't need to be conservative, maybe you just take that tack because you want to teach that lesson and model that for them as well.
Sam, you pointed out the importance of teaching kids about saving and spending carefully, but one of the things that I know that you also encourage people to do is to think charitably. As we wrap up today, can you give us a few pointers on that?
Well, it's important that, first of all, that we value people. When we value people, all people, then what happens is we create the world where we want to be accountable to those people. All people. And that's true accountability at that point. And the question is, how do you feel about giving and how do you feel about getting? It's more important to give than to get. And when you focus on getting first and giving second, then what happens is you get some and you give a little. But when you focus on giving first and getting second, then you give a lot and you get a lot. And when you contribute to your relationships and when you look for ways to give in the community, in the world that you live in, then what happens automatically is things start coming back to you. One of the things that I like to model for my family and for other business people is when we go into an area, if I'm speaking for a client or working for a client, no matter where in the world it is, we always want to do a community service project in conjunction with the paid project with the client. And we feel that's how we give back into that community. And when the people around us see us doing that, then that sets an example. And it's an example that we've set for our children, and they continue to see that to this day.
Wow, Sam, that is beautiful, and it's not only an amazing way of describing it, but you really do put your money where your mouth is. We've been talking to Sam Silverstein, who is in the business world one of the most respected speakers and authors, but also you can see in the family world as well, he's got lots and lots of advice. So, Sam, in the last few seconds, just tell us, how can people follow you and follow your work?
Oh, it's pretty simple. You can find us on the website, samsilverstein.com or beaccountable.com, and also on Twitter, and it's at Sam Silverstein. So would love to connect with people in those areas.
Okay, and we will put a link to that, to all of that, at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Sam Silverstein, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world. If you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.